In this video, we're going to solve quadratic equations by the method factoring. Okay. So first, let's look at an example of quadratic equation. Let me make this bigger. So here you see a trinomial. However, you see the equal sign, so you know it is an equation. So here we are solving trinomial equations or quadratic equation because the power here is square. Okay, and we have a quadratic equation can have one of three types of solutions. Okay, so here you have a quadratic function represent a kind of quadratic equation, and the solution is where the quadratic function touches x-axis. Because your solution is x equals a number, so your solution falls on x-axis when y equals 0. Okay? So in this situation, when your function is touching x-axis once, it has one solution. This type of condition, it has two solutions. And for this type of condition, your quadratic function is not touching the x-axis. So there is no x value, there is no solution. Okay? And let's look at the examples. Okay? The first example, you have a quadratic equation, and to solve it, we're going to factor it. So how are we going to factor it? We're going to look at the first number and the last number in order to get the middle number, which is -3. Okay? So the first number is the imaginary one. So look for two numbers multiplied together can give you 1. We only have one choice, which is 1, right? So 1 times 1 give you the first number, right? And the last number is -10. Don't forget the sign. Okay? So who times who give you -10? So first you have to know is one positive number, one negative number multiplied together, right? So let's try 2 times -5. Give you -10, right? You can try different pairs, but your goal is to get the middle number, which is -3. And let's check to see if we can get -3. How are we going to check it? We are going to multiply the first line. 1 times 2 give you 2. Multiply the second line. 1 times -5 give you -5. And add up the two numbers. 2 plus -5 give you -3, which is what you want in the middle. So you can stop trying and write your butterfly down. Okay, we're gonna write it this way. And your first column are your x, because 1x times 1x give you 1x squared, right? So you can write your butterfly down in the two parentheses, which are your two factors, right? So first is x minus 5. Second is x positive 2, so x plus 2 equals 0. Right? You're just working on the trinomial on the left side. The right side still equals 0. You copy it down. Okay? And then we know, let me write it down here. So here we have two parentheses times together give you 0. It means what? It means if you have a 0 here, so 0 times whatever, it is 0. So if x minus 5 equals 0, it makes this equation true. So 0 times whatever is 0. Or if the second parenthesis is a 0, so 0 times whatever in the front equals 0. So if the second parenthesis, which is x plus 2 equals 0, it will also make the equation true. So here you turn the two factors into two little equations. Each of them equals 0. Okay? And keep solving these two little equations, and that's it. Okay? So for the first equation, solve it by plus 5 on both sides. So you have x equals 5 as one solution. And for the second little equation, you subtract 2 on both sides. So I have x equals -2 as the other solution. And that's it. So for this quadratic equation, you have two solutions. Okay, so let's see what we're doing. First, butterfly or factor the trinomial. And when you get the two factors or the two parentheses, turn them into two little equations. Each of them equals 0. And then solve these two little equations to get two x values as your solutions. Okay. And be careful, this question is easy. The first step is to make sure to have a 0 on the right side. Okay? So on the right side is always a 0. If you don't have it, turn it into a 0 first, then butterfly it, factor it. Okay? We're gonna see the example later. And one more thing, what the solutions mean? It means if you plug 5 into x in the place of x, in your original equation, it's going to make the equation true. So let's check it. Change the color. So if x equals 5, so when you see x, you turn it into 5. Okay? So 5 squared is 25. And -3 times 5 is -15. And minus 10. Give you what? 25 minus 15 is 10. 10 minus 10 is 0. So it makes the equation true. Right? And let's check the second solution. Let me change the color. Second is x equals -2. So it's, let me erase it. So it's -2 parenthesis square, because when you plug in a negative number, give it a square, a parenthesis, right? So -2 squared times -3 times -2. And let's check it. -2 squared give you +4. -3 times -2 give you +6. Minus 10, copy it down. Is it equal 0? 4 plus 6 is 10. 10 minus 10 is 0. It means both of the solutions are real solutions for this original equation. Okay. One last thing for the first example, let's check it with the graph to see if this function really touches x-axis at 5 and -2. So let's turn on the decimals and put in the equation, which is x squared and what? Minus 3x minus 10. Minus 3x minus 10. So you see this is a parabola of this equation. And you see this parabola is touching x-axis at these 2 points. One is -2. The other is between 4 and 6, which is 5. So the two solutions is x equals -2 or x equals 5. Is it the same as our solution? -2 or 5. Okay? So you have different ways of checking your answer. Okay? Now let's look at the second example. So for this example, you'll see what? First, you have to check it. And this time you see on the left side, you don't have a 0, but you need a 0 first, okay, to make it a standard equation with a 0 on the right side. So how are you going to turn 2 into a 0? Okay. It means you want to get rid of the 2, right? How can you get rid of the positive 2? You subtract 2. And you do the same on the other side, subtract 2. So this is gone. You have a 0 left over here. And let's see what we have on the left side. Okay. So on the left side, 6x squared, x minus 2. Nothing you can combine, so just copy everything down. And on the other side equals 0. Okay? And now you can factor it to the butterfly. So work on the first number. 6 is who times who? It can be 1 times 6. And negative 2 can be 1 times negative 2. And check it. 1 times 1 is 1. 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. Add up is negative 11. But we want imaginary positive 1. So this pair of combination doesn't work. So we need to try again. So let's try this way. You may try so many times until you get the middle number. Okay? Let's try 6 can be 2 times 3. Negative 2 can be 2 times negative 1. I'm pretty sure this is right. I can get the middle number. With more practice, you can do it also. Okay? And let's check it. Multiply the first line. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. Add up the two numbers. 4 plus negative 3 is positive 1, which is what you want in the middle. Positive imaginary 1. Right? So you can write the two factors down or the butterfly down. Remember your first column are your x, because 2x times 3x give you 6x squared, right? So write the two butterflies factors down, which is 2x negative 1 and 3x positive 2 equals 0. Okay? And then turn the two little little parentheses into two little equations. So it's 2x minus 1 equals 0, or 3x plus 2 equals 0. And solve these two equations. So for the first equation, you are going to add 1 first. So you have 2x equals 1. And then divide by 2 on both sides. So I have x equals 1/2. For the second equation, I'm not going to solve it. Okay? You should have x equals negative 2 over 3. And that's it. Okay? If you want to check it, you can plug the solution into the place of x and calculate it, or you can use the decimals to see where the parabola touches x-axis. But be careful, when you use the decimals to check, you put this standard equation in. Okay? Next example. So first of all, you have to make sure you have a 0 on the right side. Okay? But this time you have two guys are on the wrong place, so move both of them. Get rid of both of them, okay? One by one. So for negative 2x, you get rid of it by plus 2x. Do the same on the other side. I put 2x under 5x because I know later I'm going to combine them because they're like terms. Okay? So this is gone. And you're going to get rid of the positive 18 by subtract 18. Do the same on the other side. Subtract 18. So this is gone. So I have a 0 on the right side. And on the left side, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. Let's see if we can combine them. Okay. So 2x squared. You don't have any other x squares, so it's a single guy. Copy it down. 5x plus 2x. You can combine them by adding up the number in the front. So it's 7x. After combining them, they're gone. Okay? And the two single numbers, you can combine them. Negative 12 plus negative 18 give you negative 30. And on the right side equals 0. Okay? And now you're going to do the butterfly to factor the trinomial on the left side. Okay? So 2 is 1 times 2, and that is the only choice. Right? Negative 30 can be 15 times 2, 1 positive, 1 negative, but it will not give you positive 7 in the middle. So let's try let's try 5, 6, and who is negative? Negative 5 times 6. Okay? So negative 5 times 6 give you negative 30. And let's check it to see if we can get positive 7 in the middle. So multiply the first line. 1 times negative 5 is negative 5. Second line, 2 times 6 is 12. Add them up, you'll have positive 7, which is what you want in the middle. Okay? So you can write your butterfly down, or the two factors down. X for the first column. Okay? So you have x positive 6 or 2x negative 5 equals 0. Okay? And then you're gonna turn the two little factors or two parentheses into two equations. And solve each of them. Okay? I'm not gonna solve it step by step because they're simple equations, right? So you have x equals negative 6 for the first equation, and you have x equals 5 over 2 for the second solution, and that's it. Okay. So example 2 and 3 tells you at the beginning check to see if you have a standard equation with 0 on the right side. Next two examples. So here on the right side we have a 0, which is good. However, on the left side, you don't have a trinomial. You only have two parts. So how are we going to solve it? Okay. So for example 4, we have two ways of solving it. If you want to do the butterfly, okay, look for the missing part. We have the x squared. We have the x squared. We have x. But we have a missing part, which is the last number part. If you have a missing part, you add it in. Okay. You don't see anything here, so it's a 0. So the number part is plus 0. Okay, so now you can do the butterfly. The first number is imaginary 1, which is 1 times 1. Last number is 0, so whole time whole give you 0. But you want a 2 in the middle, right? So let's try. 0 times 2. Let me change the place. Under the 0, we're factoring 0, right? So 0 is 0 times 2. And let's check it to see if we can get the middle number, which is positive 2. Okay. So 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 2 is 2. Add up, you have a 2, which is what you want in the middle. So you can write the butterfly down. X for the first column. So it's x positive 2, x positive 0 equals 0. And turn them into two little equations. X plus 2 equals 0, or x plus 0 equals 0. So for the first little equation, solve it. We have x equals negative 2. And for the second little equation, 0, you don't even need to write it down. So it's x equals 0 directly. And that's it. Okay. Or we have another way of solving it. We have learned the greatest common factor, right? So I'm going to copy the original equation here. And on the left side, you see what? You see x squared can be breaking down into x times x. 2x can be breaking down into 2 times x. And the common thing between the two terms is both of them have 1x. So x is the common factor here. When you see the common factor, you take it out, which is x. And both of the common factor is gone. And you put the leftover in a parenthesis. Here you have x left for the first term. And for the second term, you have plus 2 left. Equals 0 on the other side. Okay. So here you have two factors. Or if you are used to the parentheses, you can put a parenthesis here. Two factors. And now you're going to turn them into two little equations. One is the first equals 0. The second is the second factor equals 0. For the first little equation, you don't even need to solve it. It gave you the solution directly. For the second little equation, solve it. You have x equals negative 2. Okay. So both methods give you the same result. Okay. Example 5. So here again, we have a standard equation because we have a 0 on the right side. However, on the left side, we have a missing part. So this time, what is missing? Let's check it. You have x squared. Next should be x. Next should be a single number. So here we have a missing x in the middle. If we have a missing thing in the middle, you plug the missing thing in. So how are you going to plug something in it but not change your problem? We put a plus 0x. Because 0 times x is 0. So here you don't even need to write the 0 down. So you're not changing the problem, but you add a part in. Right? And now we're going to do the butterfly. So x squared is 1 times 1. Okay. Negative 16 is 1 positive, 1 negative, right? And you want a 0 in the middle. So negative 16 is positive 4 times negative 4. And let's check it. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times negative 4 is negative 4. Add them up, you have 0, which is what you want in the middle. So you can write your butterfly down. X in the first column. So we have x negative 4, x positive 4 equals 0. And turn them into two little equations. and solve them. I have x equals 4, or x equals -4. And that's it. Okay. So the last two examples tells us if you have a missing trinomial on the left side, make up that missing part by putting a 0 in, and then do the butterfly to factor the trinomial and solve the equation. Okay. So that's it about solving the equations by factoring.